Hello students, welcome to this video. In the last one, or at least in the last one based on the order that I've been making these, we implemented this little enemy guy that can follow the platform, find the edges and make sure it doesn't fall off. And the focus of that video is really about using the raycast to prevent it from falling off the platform. So in that video, I did say that we weren't implementing anything to do with our new enemy interacting with our player. In fact, at the moment, because the way we've set it up, the only interaction is that the enemy will actually get blocked by the player, and if we stand on the enemy, we can actually ride along. Now that might be useful at some point for you, but it's not what we want, of course. Now, I had suggested that you would go off and solve how to make it kill our player by yourself, but I've had some requests for how to do that, so I thought I'd quickly try and implement that with you. And it's going to borrow quite heavily on how we did the original enemy, this cog down here, which of course when we touch that enemy we die, and at the moment dying means resetting or reloading the level. So how are we going to go about that? So if we look at our new enemy at the moment, it has a single little collision shape here, which is purely for detecting the ground. But of course, when our player comes along and also bumps into this or stands on top of it, then it also treats it like ground and we can interact with it that way, which is why we're getting that riding or blocking action. But what we really want is our player, if it touches any other part of this already, to die or to go through whatever the die process is at the moment. So we're going to do that in a similar way to what we did with our original enemy. So our original enemy has an area 2D, and that's important because area 2Ds have the signal for when a body enters, and the code for that is also taken from here. So when the body enters, we're checking if that body is called player, and if it is, we're calling the die function from our body, i.e. the player, which in this case, again, as I said, just reloads the scene. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this code because I'm going to be reusing that, but I'm going to go back to my enemy, and I'm going to first of all have to add in an area 2D, because at the moment I don't have anything that is going to have that signal for something entering it. Now you can do this other ways as well. Of course you can do this with another type of collision and so forth, but we've used area 2Ds for this before, so let's sort of use a similar technology so that we can do something that we already have done before it and know works. So we'll add an area 2D, and I've already got it in my recents here, but of course you can search for it. There it is. And I'm going to rename this to be area player collision. It's not really collision, but I'm going to put that in just to help separate it out from other things. And of course, the area does need a collision shape, so I'm going to add that in. But in this case, I'm going to use a collision polygon. Now, hopefully you know what a polygon is, but basically it is just a shape with multiple straight sides. And what I'm going to do here is if I take my collision polygon and I go to my inspector, if I click on this polygon pool, then I can basically draw the polygon I want. So I'm just going to sort of start here. I'm just going to really roughly outline this character. It doesn't have to be pixel perfect. It's just going to be something, and I'm just going to make sure I join it up at the end. It's going to give me a rough shape for the interaction. So when a player comes and it hits this from any direction, it's going to be able to trigger that signal that a body has entered, and it's going to certainly be able to do that prior to anything coming and touching here. So there's no way my player can come in from the side anymore and touch this, i.e. to block the character before it actually would enter this shape. So that's just a way to add that shape. I could have used a rectangle or some other shape, but I wanted something a little bit more that matched the outline of this, so I'm using a polygon. So we can now click on our area player collision, that area that we've added in. We can go to our node and we can use that body entered signal, and we'll just connect it to the same script that we're already using, our main script for this enemy. Just get rid of a bit of blank space that we don't need. And I'm going to paste in now the code that I had before. So if the body entering its name is player, then we're going to tell it, hey, from that body, run the die method so that we can have the player reset in this case. I'm just going to take this back one tab space. It was one tab space in too far just to make it work properly. So now if I press play on this, again, it doesn't look any different to us, but now we have that new area sort of going around it. And if we bring our player in, of course, it is going to die. So again, that same action as we're seeing with our cog down the bottom, it basically just reloads the player. And that will happen as well if we land on it from the top. So we now have an enemy that not only can move side to side and keep itself safely on the platform, but we can also now interact with that player in the way that we expect, which is currently to kill our player. So there you go, that's how we would solve that problem. Hopefully you had already worked that out for yourself or some other method, but if not, we've just added that feature to our new enemy. So we'll leave that as part of our game now. So as always, if you're from one of my classes, I hope this has helped you, and you can always ask for help in class. But if you're not from one of my classes, again, I hope this has helped you in some way.